Hey, what's going on?
Nothing at all.
We're gonna record a video?
Are you recording me?
I need a videographer.
Well,
alright.
maybe the cow can videotape you.
Hey, would you record a video for me? Come on, Brandy. Somebody needs to be my videographer. Are you my videographer? Welcome back. So we're on the new homestead, and as I mentioned in a previous video, the soil here is better. So how do you know if your soil is any good? Today I'm going to give you a few ideas, and I'm going to try and film this video myself because we have cows, and cows are not good videographers. One of the first things you'll notice on a new property is the grass. Out here the grass is pretty good. It's pretty thick. There's not a lot of gaps in it. It's green. A little later in the year, so some of it's got seed heads on it and it's browned out a little bit. But it's not bad. There's nice grass all over the place. And there's a mix of species in it. I see sedges. There's some broadleaf weeds. There's some blackberries, creeping blackberries, and other things. So I do know that there is a mix of species here, and the soil is good enough that there is some density to the growth. On my previous property where we were renting, we had soil that was so bad, I said it looked like the debris from a construction site. Terrible, terrible dirt. And it was obviously terrible because it was really patchy. You didn't get good stretches of green like this. You had all these patches in between where even the grass did not want to grow, and that is a bad sign. That is a bad sign. So if you're in a place that has decent rainfall and you don't have patchy ground, obviously this does not apply if you're in an arid climate where you have, you know, very water-saving plants and very low rainfall. Things are spread out over the year. You might get 15 inches or something, and yeah, you got a lot of patchy areas. But here in the humid south, so that's your first sign. The grass looks good. Number two, what do your trees look like? Do you have nice deciduous hardwoods? If you're in an area where you have a whole bunch of pines, that's not a good sign for the soil that you're going to be gardening in. But if you have an area with a lot of thick deciduous hardwoods, that's a good sign. And an area where trains come through, even better. I was just kidding about the trains. If you were taking notes and you're like, oh, a train going by, how does that help? Maybe the carbon monoxide feeds the... No, that was a joke. Don't take things too literally. So here we've got oaks. There are pecans in there. There are sweet gums. I have seen some hickories. There are some escaped Bradford pears, and there's the ubiquitous popcorn tree. And there's the occasional pine in here, but not very many. Over here by the pond we have willows, which is pretty common, whatever the soil. But there's a good bit of deciduous hardwoods, which means that the soil is good enough to support high quality trees. Black cherries here and there, that sort of thing. That's a good sign. If you have a whole bunch of pines, often you have poor acid soil. It's great for pines, it's good for blueberries, it's good for blackberries, persimmons can handle it, but it's not great for a lot of your gardening. So if you want general purpose gardening and orchards, this is what you're looking for. Just like that. Another thing to consider is, what does your soil look like? What does it smell like? Does it have a nice rich aroma to it? A lot of fungi in it? Do you see worm castings on top of the ground? That's a good sign. If you don't see any worms at all, you probably are pretty short on biological activity and probably pretty short on organic matter. There are areas, particularly in Florida, where you dig and you just don't see any worms. They just aren't there. There's nothing for them to eat. The soil is a dead medium, or pretty close to it. As dead as something with billions and billions of bacteria in it could be. But if you look and you see bad drainage spots, right? The water sits for a long time. That's not a good sign. If you see that the soil sticks together really tight, like you could make pottery out of it, that's a high clay soil. That's not the best. It may still be nutrient dense, but it's something you're gonna have to work with on drainage. And if it just falls to pieces in your hands like the sand in an hourglass, sandy soil, it's probably very leached, drains quickly, and is not going to be the best thing for a garden. What you want is something kind of in between. A nice loamy soil. A clay loam is good, a silty loam, a sandy loam. This soil here is sandy loam, and I'll show you what that looks like. This is where our gardens are planned. This is where we've uncovered lots of old sidewalk. Lots of old sidewalk. Some of our Muscovy ducks there. They're the ducks that take care of themselves. Very nice ducks. Not particularly destructive. We discovered this goes back to here and maybe farther. We're trying to figure out how far this sidewalk actually goes. Where does the sidewalk end? We don't know. But let's talk about the soil. That's enough of that. I'm obsessed with that sidewalk. Let's see what we got. Nice color. When it's wet, dig it a little further down. When it's wet, holds together, breaks apart. You can crush it together. It's got some stickiness to it. It has a nice feel, but it breaks apart. This is excellent for gardening in, at least structurally. And we can assume that it's pretty healthy because this fig looks great, the grass looks great. These are good signs. And the ducks are very happy. And if we look up, we've got those deciduous hardwoods overhead. This area right here, closer to the pond, is a thick, clayey muck. And there's a lot of clay in there. This is not a good spot to garden. It could support some life. Obviously, over by the pond, there's a lot of life growing. But for your vegetable gardens or orchard, this is gonna be pretty soppy. If you see spots like this, avoid them. Not the best for your gardens. And if you have to garden there, you're gonna have to garden up, either by making higher mounded beds or making raised beds of some sort. That should give you kind of a jumping off point for an area that you're looking at gardening in. If you're gonna buy a homestead, you should look and see, is there a lot of greenery there already? Is it a good mix of species? Is there nice thick grass? Does the soil look good? Does it have bad drainage spots in it? If it's supporting a bunch of wild life already, that's a good starting point. That's not everything though. This is just a rough guesstimate. Looks pretty good, structure looks pretty good, things are growing well, but it doesn't tell you if you, say, lack selenium, or if you're a little short on molybdenum or something like that. You can figure those things out by getting a soil test, which we will do. I recommend getting the Logan Labs test. You can look up Logan Labs, get the soil test with extras, and try and figure out what is missing in your soil and what your organic matter looks like and what your pH looks like, and then you have a little more data to start with as you build your garden plans. Anyhow, I'll catch you all soon. Thanks for joining me. For those of you that came out and saw me in Missouri and visited Doug and Stacy and Billy from Permapastures and all those good folks that were out there, it was a great time. We had a lot of fun in Hannibal. I highly recommend going and seeing if you can get into the next Homesteading Life Conference in Hannibal this next year. It was a lot of fun. It was good to meet some of you in person. I'll catch up with you all next time. And until then, check out my book, Compost Everything, and my other book, Grow or Die. And I have a bunch of other books you can check out too. Just look up David the Good. I don't even have any idea how many books I've written, but they're all amazing and you should own them. Green thumb.
Heart is pumping, the road flies.
make it, we have to try.